Okay, thank you for coming. I guess it's a bigger deal than normal because the campus was closed and you had to park down an H. I just got a text saying that they're going to open another gate for us, but you're already all here. Those of you who are at home, first, before we talk about the jobs on set, I want to talk about our schedule. So I looked at the weather on my phone, and when it opens, it's now saying rain on Thursday and Friday of next week. So if that happens, we're going to have to audible. We're going to have to change. Next Friday, we are not meeting at 10 o'clock here in the studio. It's supposed to be Sophie's genre project. They're shooting the musical, singing and dancing and the whole thing. And it's going to be spectacular. We've only done one other musical. Sophie actually acted in it, but this is going to blow that away. And we're actually going to prep for it afterwards for those of you who want to come. It'll be at my house, which is where we're going to shoot 2435 Olea Court here in Gilroy. But we chose my home because there's a place where you can see the sun setting. And so we want to shoot, we got to set up, there's going to be a lot of setup ahead of time, but then we want to shoot at sunset. And then kind of some of the stuff will happen a little after dark as well, but it's actually dancing in the street. The motivation is La La Land. Yes. So that's what we're doing if the weather holds. Or holds, if the weather is better than it's now predicted to be.
Because it's going to rain, there might be a possibility of getting more backward.
Yeah, but we got to see. Yeah. And I don't know what we'll do. What we might end up doing is, for those who want to, we might do a Zoom, and if we can't shoot, we'll probably move up 3-point lighting. And so we'll probably use my living room and do a 3-point lighting lesson, and have maybe do a couple of practical scenes, do a horror scene and do a romantic scene or something. And we can get the lighting schemes, learn the equipment and some of that. I'm hoping you can come no matter what, because Nick he started as kind of a key grip last semester and became kind of a gaffer. So, but anyways, if we don't shoot the musical, we'll shoot the lighting and then find an alternate date, hopefully the next Friday, but I'm not sure if that works for you and David and you, Sophie. So
and DP also.
And who?
DP.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we have to figure that out. And when you shoot outside, that's always an issue. Shooting outside can be spectacular, but it always comes with problems. Weather's one of them. Sound is another. I remember actually my very first film I shot was a documentary, and I had a professional actor. She had this long script, and it took us all day long to get through it because every 5 minutes there was an airplane, and we would have to reshoot things, and it was such a problem. And I thought, here, Gavilan, we were up by the pond back when there used to be a dock on it, and we shot there, and yet it was just so noisy and problematic. So yeah, sound can be a problem, weather, wind. So anyways, I constantly update the shooting schedule. I think production schedule, and it's on our class page on week 1. If you look at it, I will revise it anytime I know there's a change. And then I gray out the things that we've done. So we've already done week 1 and week 2. Week 1 was the introduction to the class. We did that here on Zoom. Then we did last week, we shot the 2 films Tim directed the film noir, and then I directed the sci-fi. We wanted to get it done. We want to get the genre projects done early, but we also thought it might be a nice kind of taste of what's to come this semester. And then we're actually going to talk about the specific jobs today. But as we complete them, you can see how they're less. I make the font less bright, so you know that it's something we've already done, and I'm moving things around. Now, one of the things that you have to realize is that I know 7 of you have approached us about directing, and if you want to direct, especially if you want to direct before the showcase, it's going to be first come, first serve. First to have a script and a shot list, I will get on the schedule first. I know that we're scheduled to shoot Grayson's film Dead Before Midnight on week 4, which is next week. Actually, I don't know if we can bump yours back a week. You're in that too, right? Yeah. So yeah, he has work stuff that he has to get off way in advance, and it's Friday and Saturday. So, in other words, keep looking at the schedule because it will keep changing. This is one of the problems, is that we have to work things in. The lesson plans that we do can always change because we simply do them on Zoom and things, but that's a little more difficult. So keep watching. And if you want to direct, meet with me or Tim or Sophie about your scripts, and the sooner you get them to us, the sooner we can lock you in on the schedule. So does anyone have any questions about that? The other thing I wanted to say is we're still shooting the basketball games tonight, but we're not streaming. They're streaming their own. They have their own camera for streaming their games. So, but we're still going to shoot. We're going to have a more complete 3-camera shoot that will be uploaded to YouTube. But we're also going to have like a highlight reel and interviews. So we're going to do kind of a news bit that we will then show to the campus. I'm hoping that there'll be a link on the homepage, and it'll be everything that we film and record tonight. So those of you who want to come, we're going to need 3 camera operators. We need people help setting up the lighting, and even things like we don't have a reporter. So if anyone wants to be on camera during the interviews, this is an opportunity. We'll prepare questions and together and all of that. So that's all coming later today. It's completely optional, and it's not film production, but it's camera work, it's audio work, and a variety of different things. And I just think different types of projects are fun to do. So anyways, I think that's all I wanted to mention about the schedule. So let's talk about the jobs on set. So we've done this before already. I think it was during COVID. We couldn't discuss it in person. So you and Grady and we did have any of you seen that? Yeah. So we're going to talk about some of the same things, maybe different films, but I actually have a list, and I thought we would go in the order of the list. But who's the boss? And if you've already read, don't say it. But who's the person, or sometimes people, who are the boss for a film? So it makes sense, but no, it's not. The boss is the person who hires people, worries about budget, worries about locations, and not finding them, but funding them, and ensuring the project, then oversees things like post-production and things like that. So what do you think that job title is? Producer. Yeah. It's the thing that Tim and I are going to talk about the least, because even though it's what I do constantly, I don't do it like they do in Hollywood. I don't go looking for funding. I basically we have a TV studio. I own all my equipment, and then I kind of self-fund. I have a cool wife who allows me to spend a little bit of money, but yeah, I don't have a lot of things to pass on, because it's business. And if you are good at business and you love movies, wow, you could be a producer and have, you can get work that people, how wouldn't it be great to have a producer for all of your projects?
Yeah.
Unless it was somebody who was bossy.
Or stingy.
Yeah, and then says no to everything. That's what I was playing in Samantha's the film class. I think that's on our class page, the film class, you've seen it?
Yeah, it is.
So in it, Trevor wanted to blow up a car. And I, as the producer, said, no, I can't do it. And there's permits and, money and safety, and then he did it anyways. Producer is if you're going to win an Academy Award for Best Picture, it's the producer who goes on stage and collects. Anyone have any questions about producer? And I don't know if Sophie and I can answer them, but okay. Then the next one is the director. What is the job of the director?
The director's job is obviously very important. I would say that a lot of directing is about making deliberate choices that are creating an aesthetic and a positive working environment together. So the director, now that we've talked about producing a little bit, it's often the producer that will bring in people as well, but on like maybe a smaller project, the director will be in charge of picking who their DP is, picking who their lighting, their gaffer is, casting their actors, and all of that is directly derived from the director's vision of the project. So they take the script, they create a creative vision, and then every choice that they make is attempting to bring that vision to life. And then they'll work with the other creative departments to do that vision.
It is the director creates the vision. It is his or her vision that everything stems on. So the director's in charge of all the other departments, art direction, camera, acting, all of that. So the director's in charge of that. It's the director's has creative control. Now the producer can get in the way, because when it comes to casting, for example, you might say, okay, and for my next film, I really want to hire Brad Pitt and Meryl Streep. And if I was the producer, I'd say, no, because I can't afford that. But it is the director who has the creative control. But again, how often have any of you heard of what's called a director's cut? What is a director's cut?
Yeah, it could like have more scenes that was originally.
Yeah, so the director might have this vision or want the story to be more longer, but fuller, or create more, and the producer will say, no, I want it to be 90 minutes, or it cannot exceed 120 minutes. Why would a producer say no?
Because of the studio, the publication, what's the word? I'm blanking on the word. But they probably say no because they give the money to the producer. And then it goes
Well,
down.
just the one word, money. It's
Yeah.
all about money. So sometimes the more you add, the more it costs. But more importantly, they're worried about seats in the audience members in seats, that's revenue.
So watch time.
Yeah, so have you ever skipped a movie because it's 3 hours long? Yeah, I mean, there are people, if it's too long, they won't go. A director, sometimes I really need this emotional scene, it's very powerful, but that's what gives it an R rating. Because of profanity or something. And a producer might say, no, we want to keep it PG-13 because an R rating limits the number of people who can go to the theater. So they will, it's putting a limit on the vision. Well, the director's cut will be what the director really wanted, which is, and quite often it's more scenes, it's longer. And so if you really like a director and there is a director's cut, sometimes you want to see that, to see what the director really intended. But yeah, the director's in charge of all the creative decisions. Let's talk about the screenplay writer. I'm a writer. Tim and I teach the screenwriting class. What do you know about screenwriting? It started during the golden age of cinema, the studio system. And the writer was basically very bottom of the totem pole. They were listed actually, near the top, which meant that they had kind of less significance, less power, less influence. And they were basically, oh yeah, just give us the script and, then we'll make it into a movie. That has been changing a lot. First of all, experienced screenwriters are getting paid more and more for their scripts. I argue that it all starts with the script. If you don't have a good script, you can't have a good movie. It starts with good writing. But if you look now on the way where the names are, in Hollywood, where your names are is a big deal. If you're an actor, you want to be listed first, with your name. That means it's you're the one driving the film. But then at the end, it ends with the director. So it's producer, the producers are listed, then the writer, then the director. And so writing, they're starting to realize the importance of writing, and writers are getting more attention, more power, more money for their work. Yeah, you're a really good writer. What do you think about the writing process? And
I think following the rules is important. Knowing what your limits are, as maybe you really want to write a screenplay about a flying dog, but how are you actually going to make the dog fly? How, if you hand it off to the director, now they are tearing their hair out trying to make this dog fly. So writing within the limits, but still going creatively. Another good rule of thumb, when it comes to dialogue, if you notice, people kind of tend to, even I'm doing it now, tend to kind of break off halfway through their sentence or change directions. So people don't talk in perfect English and they don't talk in perfect sentences. So when I write dialogue, I always want to make sure that it sounds human, it sounds natural. Maybe people are interrupting each other, they're not really listening to each other. So those are a couple good rules of thumb.
yeah, and I think speaking over the top of each other, it might be rude, your mom might be upset, but we speak over each other quite often. And in real life, how often are you talking and someone's also talking at the same time? Maybe difficult to show on film, but I think it's very realistic and that type of thing. But yeah, screenwriting, Sophie talked about the format. There's a very particular format. And if you want to write a script to try to get produced, you got to make sure your script follows that format, because if you write a script and you're hoping to sell it, if it's not in that format, producers will glance at it. Oh, that's not a script, and they'll toss it in the garbage. So
I've heard that that producers will read up till the first mistake and then throw it in the trash. So
yeah. So by the way, I love to read scripts. If you want to write something, I'm happy to. I'm sure Sophie would be happy to. Tim would be happy to give you feedback on them. But it's I think a very, very important part of filmmaking. By the way, jump in if you have questions, and there's nobody online, so I won't have to worry about that. But yes.
Do we get to do any like writing in this class? Or is that something?
Well, there's a screenwriting class specifically, and they have to. If you want to write, you absolutely can. There, I know 6 or 7 directors who no one's given me a script yet. So if you want to write, the sooner you can write something, the more likely it will be produced this semester. But maybe team up with somebody who's asked to direct. You weren't one of them. Did you ask to direct? So if you want to write a script and then pitch it, we can have a pitching session too. And if you want to write a script or even just have your kind of concept ready, we can have a pitching session, and I'll make sure all the directors are there. And then they can, if they like it, someone will say, I'll do that. Or maybe you might have directors fighting over, and they have to give you a shoulder massage or buy you a meal or something to get your script.
And I did mention it, but I'll just mention it again for all of you who weren't here. There is a free screenwriting software that is, it's like a plugin or like a program within Google Drive. It's just called screenwriting software or screenplay formatter. So that's a good way to start formatting your scripts.
I'm also happy to send you scripts so you can see the format.
You could go online and you can just type in like Indiana Jones screenplay and you'll find it. So there's plenty of screenplays if what movie you like the most, you could say for that.
Yeah. You got to be aware that there are 2 types of scripts. There's a spec script and a shooting script. And you should be writing a spec script. That's what tells the story. The shooting script is what how the director turns the spec script into the shootings. That's camera angles and movements and notes to actors and things like that. You're not worried about that.
Is that? Is that?
No, shot list is something very different. I gave my shot list for the genre project and my
Shot list right here.
yeah. So, but that I put those on the class page, and if you want to glance at them, you can see how I do it. There are others, and I think Sophie's like this. Tim was like this, where it's more.
I like to do like the grid kind of format with a bunch of different categories. Equipment, camera movement. Is there audio? Is there not audio? Maybe lighting is in there, and then what is actually happening within the shot. So if you want to reach out to me, I can also send you a format that I use.
Yeah. So, and there are different formats. I think I do it. Why I use Word so much more, so I'm more comfortable with that. But I have a lot of these things in my head, and I then like to talk to the different departments about what I'm after. But I'm sure there'll be DPs or gaffers who want to know up front, and I'm constantly asking, what do you want ahead of time? So having a grid where you have more information can be super beneficial to the other program leads, the heads.
So what's the different types of producers? Because you have like the associate producer and then it continues going down.
Yeah, so executive producer means nothing.
Isn't that like funding?
Yes, so oftentimes we want to shoot in this hotel, so we'll give them executive producer credit, the owner of the hotel. And that means that but they're not doing any work. And it often, I'll give you, $1 million towards a project. Okay, you're one of the executive producers. Producer and sometimes there can be 1, 2, 5 producers. But they're the ones who are actually doing all of the
Being on set.
yeah, although not necessarily. A lot of producers feel like they're better off looking for money or dealing with issues, and they're not on set. Although they do go through the whole process. It's pre-production, production, and post-production. But they're not as concerned about what's happening on the set as the director is, more worried about that.
So it's like an associate producer, the person that's just.
It's
kind of
basically an
doing the
assistant
work. Yeah.
to, it's not one of the producers, it's someone who's assisting
Do
one
more
of,
than trying to get
making the
stuff
phone
done.
calls and calling the insurance companies
Yeah.
and, let's see, so with one of the things that we just talked about is the assistant director. I'm not sure if I've worked with anyone better than Sophie, so maybe I'll just let Sophie talk about the responsibilities of the assistant director or AD.
So I kind of think about it, the director is the creative force, and the assistant director, their job is to allow for space so that the director can really focus on what their creative vision is. So a lot of what the assistant director does is kind of streamlining the actual process of production, and they're often in the pre-production process too. But they manage scheduling primarily, and then actually on set, keeping everybody focused. Often there may be 3 to 4 steps ahead. They're saying, hey, gaffer, we have these next couple of shots that are coming up, but after that, there's going to be a major overhaul that I want you to be prepared for that's coming up in 2 to 3 shots. So can you be aware of that? They're trying to get as much information out there as possible to all of the department heads, just so that the entire process of directing for the director is as smooth and streamlined as possible.
So one of the terms you often hear in filmmaking is hurry up and wait. So there are times when these group of people are working their tails off to get things ready, and then they sit and wait while the actors and the camera is working. And then so what human nature is, you sit down and relax, and then it's hard to get going again. It's the assistant director's job to make sure that everyone, when it's their time, to work hard and get things ready so that we stay on schedule. If you look at that shooting schedule, Tim and I, we shot these 2 scenes last Friday, and I had 22 shots, and I think he had 10 or something like that. 32 shots in a day is a lot. So to get through all of that, by the way, remember when Tim brought the pizzas and we sat and took a break, what kind of happened? Yeah. Well, it was just, and I think Grayson was the AD. He said we have 15 minutes, but everything stopped. And ideally you would have, if it was a good AD, it might be, okay, the gaffer and the key grip might go out and have their lunch while they're shooting. And then during the time when the cast and maybe some of the other crew would be eating, they would be setting up the next scene or something, breaking at a time. So not always 12 to 12:30 will be lunch. Sometimes we have to go later to make sure that we can, timing is ideal.
Time is money, we always want to be moving forward with production.
Yeah, and so I'm a little less concerned about money. I'm more concerned that there were 32 shots that we needed to complete. If we did not finish them, now what?
And think about like energy. Everybody is very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, but it is, you know, later and later it gets in the day, the less energy people have, the more mistakes are being made. Your talent is gonna be fresh right at the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, they're gonna be exhausted. So all of that, if you can cut down on time, you're cutting down on that loss of energy, that lack of focus.
So you're absolutely right. On a real Hollywood set, they want to streamline it so that they don't have to pay overtime, and all of that is money. For our sake, it's funny because in the classroom, you all, I'm sure, expected to be here for a certain amount of time. Now you start to have jobs or other classes, or you have other obligations, other things planned. So if you start to go too long, you start losing crew members. That happens. One of the reasons why you always have food on set is that people can only go so long before they start to get hungry. And if you don't have food there, they're going to leave to go get their own food. And will they come back? So Tim and I always want to have food and drinks for snacks. And then if we want to go longer than maybe say 5, maybe 6 hours, we have to have a lunch or a dinner in there. Otherwise, you know, there goes your crew. So, but this is all when it comes to AD, keeping a schedule. And I love it when the AD says, hey, we're 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Yeah, you know, that's a good thing. Because what's more often is the case is we're an hour behind. We got to try to catch up. And now there's the pressure of trying to get it all in, or what am I going to have to cut, or the integrity of the project is at stake.
I think as an AD, it's also important to know who you're working with and try to maintain a positive working atmosphere. So maybe the director is very focused on just talking to their actors, but as an AD, I think it's important to check in with your crew, see how your crew's doing. Yeah.
So when I first started making films, I always did double duty. You want to be, the director really wants to be the good cop, you know, the happy, let's, you know, get it. And the AD has to be at times tough, and doesn't mean you have to be like Grady in that film and break the clipboard over your knee, but you have to say, come on, let's go. You know, we got to get going, you know, and really, and style is a big deal. I mean, some people might be very encouraging and, you know, give pep talks. Others might say, hey, come on, let's go. We all know Grady, and I'm just kidding.
It's good to have a balance of the two.
Yeah. But whatever it takes, you have to get people going, and get everyone working. So, any questions about AD? I hope you are all willing to try it at some point. You have to work closely with the director. And if you want suggestions, she's amazing at it. One of the things that she can do is the director can have a list of shots. I want to do these 22 shots. Sophie puts enough thought into it. What should be shot first and second and last, and in the order. So for example, take the sci-fi film that I shot last week, where I shot all of Michaela's shots first. And it was like 1, 6, 9, 11, 15. We're all shot in one direction. If I had shot Michaela's, then David's, and then Michaela's, we would have been having to move camera and changing lighting and all of that. And it would have taken significantly longer. The AD helps the director organize the shots so that they go faster, that they're streamlined, that they're more efficient. Yeah.
Wouldn't you want a secondary camera? So then it's like a natural conversation, so you don't have to do this double takes.
Also, I'll tell you, in my experience, there's only 2 types of films that use a second camera. It's really, really rare in film. Television is more common, because then you can get coverage and get it all in fewer takes. That's not how things are done in the film world, with 2 exceptions. One is stunts. And oftentimes you'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras, so you get, if one doesn't get exactly what you want, another one will, and different angles. The other is comedy. So if a director is the type who encourages ad-libbing, then if you're not catching with both cameras, you can't use it. So comedy is one where you sometimes use more. When I've shot with 2 cameras, the camera that I'm not watching never gets, not one time have I been able to use it. It just does not work. As a director, you can only watch one screen at a time and listen to kind of one. And so I wish they could do kind of a split screen so you could see both, but it just doesn't work. And so it's never worked for me. So yeah.
I used 2 cameras to shoot something recently, but it was a music video.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think certain projects or styles might lend to it, but it's really, really rare in Hollywood.
Yeah, and like you said, of TV shows using it more because they have to move so fast. If you only have a week to make a show episode, then it's gonna be easier to just do that one.
So,
take,
In 3 camera comedies, that's a format. They actually use 4 cameras. They're catching all the action. Camera 1's doing this, camera 2's doing that, and etc. But in single camera comedies, the shows like The Office or Modern Family or things like that, they use 1 camera. And when they ad lib, they often will shoot wider so they can catch the action. But they shoot one side and then they shoot the other, just like they do in film. I was on the set of The Office for shooting a scene, and everything was shot with 1 camera. So you think, and it seems counterintuitive. Hey, get both sides at the same time, but I mean, first of all, you light for. If you take the example that I did, we lit for one direction and then it doesn't look as good. Or if you turn the direction, there's your crew. There's the director and everybody. So
it has to be more thought out than just doing a regular single camera.
yeah, it just doesn't happen that often in film unless there's a particular purpose, like a musical. I could see that being the case, or comedy or something like that. But yeah, it's more difficult. You basically have to have 2 teams, 2 DPs, 2 or 3 ACs, for each camera. And think of the expense.
Yeah.
You know how expensive the red is. Now you have to have 2 of them.
And you have the editor's gonna take a little bit more time trying to cut those between if it's dialogue.
Yeah. So anyways, that's why it does not tend to happen that much in film. Yeah. Production designer and production assistant PA. Oh no, we skipped continuity director, script supervisor.
Scripty.
You want to do that?
Sure. Scripty has multiple kind of jobs. Their primary job, well, one of their primary jobs, why they're really called Scripty, I would say, is that they look at the script, what's on the script, and they might see that somebody flubbed a line or they said blue instead of red. So they would go up to the director and they would say, hey, this actor said blue but in the script it says that they're supposed to say red. So they want to keep track of all of the things going on that are actually in the script and make sure that they happen in shooting. But the other job of the scripty that's super important is managing continuity. Does anyone know what continuity is?
Making sure all matches.
Yeah, so if you see like me and Grant right here, there's keys on the table, there's a computer right there, there's a phone right there, and there's a piece of paper right there. Well, what if something happens and I get up for a sec and the paper moves over here? Now half of the shots have the paper over here and the other half have the paper over here. That simple thing could ruin an entire scene. So the continuity script supervisor, continuity director,
Yeah,
they also manage continuity, making sure, oh, he raises the cup with his left hand. He does that every time. Oh, everything is in its proper place. I always like to have my scripty take photos when I set up a scene so that they are like, everything looks exactly accurate. Hair, makeup. So it's a huge job and a huge responsibility.
A good real example you could say that everyone saw last week was when we were doing the hotel scene. Michaela had a cigarette there towards the end. We had to get a new one because it's so short. Looking at amount of time, little details like that. I feel like a lot of people don't think of, but the viewers can definitely see.
yeah. And actors have to think about continuity too. I just watched the other day, Music and Lyrics, the rom-com with Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore. And there's a scene where they're at a table and she's got a drink and she's drinking it like out of a straw, and she'd drink, and then they'd cut to the next shot and the cup's on the table, and they'd cut back to her, and then she's eating it, taking a bite of her sandwich, and they cut back to him, and now she's holding the cup. And I mean, and as I was watching, I thought, holy cow, how could they let that on screen? Kissing scenes, you know, someone turns this way and they cut to the other person and they have their head in the other direction, or there's just so much of that. The continuity director has to watch out for all of that and try to limit those things as much as possible.
How much food they go through on set, if it's like an eating scene.
Yes, by the way, actors don't want to eat much, because if you're doing things over and over and over and over again, and you're taking a bite in every single one, you might eat 10 sandwiches and not only that, but then every time you take a bite, okay, a new sandwich has to come in, and it can be a problem. So what actors really get clever doing is they'll pick something up and about to take a bite and then say something or listen and then set it back down, and then they're ready to go and again. And so they're on the verge of eating a lot, and you don't see them eat that much. I love it though when you see an actual actor and they're really going to town on the food. All I can think of is, how much did you eat that day? Because you got to do it over and over again. So, but yeah, the script supervisor is incredibly important. The script supervisor traditionally sits right beside the director, behind the monitor, because the script supervisor has to be able to say, I'm not sure if that's right. Did that match? All the little details the scriptie's in charge of.
Do they have their own monitor too, or do they use the director's monitor?
The sets I've been on, they sit beside the director and looking at the same monitor. The biggest monitor always goes to the director and the scriptie, because they're doing things like, what's that in the background, and trying to catch all the little things. And once you start to do that, you get really good at finding, like, for example, I'm looking at the shot now. I see that little hole in the wall at the bottom. That bugs me. Okay, let's tilt the camera up slightly to get rid of that, or let's put a plant in front of it to hide it. All the little details. So you got to have the better monitor for that stuff.
Is script supervisor and the director of continuity the same person?
Yeah.
Or are they separate?
No, it's same person. It's two very different jobs. The script supervisor will have a ton of notes on the script. They're making sure that things are that the script is being honored.
Or if it gets changed, like say on the day of, the director likes that the actor saying blue, suddenly every take has to say blue, has to say blue, has to say blue.
Yeah.
Blue in the wide, blue in the medium.
The other thing too is the script supervisor is in charge of taking notes on the shots. Okay, we did this shot 8 times. The 7th one was the best. And so according to the director, And those notes go to the editor, and the editor knows, okay, we're look at the 7th shot first because it was the one that the director liked. So there's the scripty is so important and does a lot. So production designer, the look of the film. This is one of those things where the more money you have, the more full-time people you have doing them. And when you start to go smaller, the director will often work with the scripty and somebody to do that. We all pitched in to move some chairs around and take a painting off the wall. And so production designer we won't have someone designated, but when you start to work on a real production, there will be someone whose job it is, and that the production designer will often have several people working to get things just right. So let's talk about the camera department. The head of the camera department is the DP, director of photography, the DP. It is the director of photography's job to visually give the look that the director wants. What quite often is the case is that the DP will also be the camera operator, although that's not always the case. In Hollywood, there are a lot of DPs who never touch the camera. They have a separate camera operator. They also are the DPs in charge of lighting, but rarely does the DP touch the lighting. The DP instructs the gaffer to create the lighting scheme that they want, if that makes sense. So it is the boss of the visuals, the look captured on the camera. But there are a lot of layers to that and a lot of other positions to that. Things that you wanted to say about that, or?
The DP could also, okay, sorry. On a small scale, the DP might work with the director. So the director might say, I want this shot and this shot and this shot, but on a big scale production, most often the DP is creating the shot list. Is that correct? There's some difference.
With the director.
Yeah.
The director will say, I want to capture these things, and then the DP will help do that. As a director, I would never turn over my shot list to anyone else, but it depends on the director. But the DP is the production head. It's the person in charge of that. And I know a lot of DPs who want to operate the camera. And I bet you, those of you who are interested in being a DP will also want to operate the camera. It's cool, it's fun. It's interesting to frame things or get the movement you like. But that's not always the case in Hollywood.
And it's an interesting opportunity to be able to make suggestions. Oh, let's try this in a Dutch angle, or.
Oh, let's talk about who gets to talk to the director. If you are a grip and you say to the director, hey, why don't you try this? You know how fast you'd be fired? You just don't get to go to the director and say those things. Now, in the class, we're going to be very forgiving because it's a learning process. And we're all kind of working together to make the films. But if you had an idea and you're a grip, you might say to the key grip, what about this? And then the key grip will say, if the key grip likes it, might say something to the DP. And if the DP likes it, then the DP can say something to the director. But the person who's wrangling cables and, setting up C-stands doesn't get to just say to the director, hey, you should try this, or I didn't like that shot, or it just, there's
A hierarchy.
yeah. And it seems a little bit like the military, like there's the general and the private doesn't get to question the general. But there needs to be a little bit of that, because I've been on sets where everyone says, hey, no, try this, and that doesn't work. And it can be, and when you direct, you have to have a vision. Now, you might be open, especially to actors, if they want to try things or ad lib, if people want to come and give you suggestions. Sophie gave me a direction that I absolutely loved just the other day with the sci-fi. She said, hey, first of all, she asked, hey, can I make a suggestion? Absolutely. What about if she said it and it's making she was trying to the robotic voice. I hadn't thought of it. Genius. I absolutely loved it. And we then said to Michaela, can you try to do that? Fantastic. So, I'm very open. It was a great idea, but there's kind of an appropriate way of doing it, in other words.
And I think it's important to mention, like, as a director, you have 10,000 things on your mind. You're trying to focus on 10,000 different things. You're watching the monitor. Maybe you're sitting back for a sec and you're trying to think about, well, I want to fix this. I want to change this. I want to do that. Suddenly somebody's popping in. Hey, and then your vision is getting disturbed and your focus is getting broken. So that's why we have kind of a hierarchy system, because that allows for the director to remain focused.
Yeah. Jump in if you have questions or comments about any of this stuff. By the way, we talked about the DP, but then the DP always has, on Hollywood sets, there are usually 3 ACs, first AC, second AC, third AC. The second AC is the person who's really in charge of the camera, setting up for the monitors and dealing with the media and changing lenses. And you rarely change a lens by yourself. You work with someone else. So the second AC will go get the lens and then hand it, and then there's passing off, and so it's a team effort. The second AC will often operate the slate. And then the second AC then is the one who's dealing with the audio department, because jamming the audio starts the time code, and then goes to the slate and then to the camera. So it's a camera crew headed by the DP. So, yes.
Does the DP actually get to do anything with like still photography, or is it all?
No, the still photography is a whole nother department. And it's funny because the still photographer has to work the still photographer often will work with a scriptie, for example. So in the low budget world, our world, the scriptie will often take the pictures, with their cell phone or with the camera that they have. But often in Hollywood, the scriptie would say, take these pictures, or camera operator, or the photographer, come with me and we'll get these shots. And then the photographer often is responsible for getting shots that work for promotional reasons. So the producer will say, I need these behind the scenes shots or promotional shots, or let's get the actors in their costumes so we can, so that type of thing.
So the DP isn't the one that does like the movie posters?
No. The DP is worried about that, the camera and shooting. Yeah, and a lot of the promotional stuff really comes in post. I've never given that thought until afterwards. Have you ever thought about like movie posters and stuff before?
No.
Yeah.
So no, that's all. I have a question I wondered my whole life. Why is it, I feel like for Sony films, the main advertisement poster I'll see will be like a shot of obviously the main cast. And a scene that's not even in the movie at all. Is there like a reason behind that? Or is it sometimes some of them maybe cut out? Or-
So I don't know for promotional stuff. And trailers, they often send it to other companies. And other companies produce the promotional material. They take what they're given. And then they try to make it as exciting as possible.
Yeah, I would say it has to do with the psychology of advertising.
Just getting people's attention.
I remember there's a film that I love, Dan in Real Life, and I remember watching the trailer, and there's this one scene in it that I thought was so hysterical. It's not in the movie. It was an outtake. But that was something they got. It was funny, and so they used it. I was really disappointed because I wanted to see that scene in the movie in the context, and yet it wasn't there. You know, they'll do anything. I think they go too far. I think trailers tell too much of the story quite often.
I always watch to like the halfway mark and then I turn it off because
Yeah, but when you're in a movie theater, what do you do?
Yeah, it varies because of idioms now, because we have like YouTube and then we have like, you're going to the movie theater. And so you have to edit it certain ways because you might watch something on YouTube and they might have a 3-second hook and then it goes into the title card and then it goes into the main trailer is because people drop off in the 30 seconds of that video. And so it's just, yeah, it's just trying to grab people. So it might vary with the certain cut.
The thing that I have to say again, but back to producing, the producers do not care whether the story's spoiled. They just want you to buy a ticket and go to the film or yeah, so they'll do anything it takes to get you there. Misrepresent story or to give you the whole story just to get you excited about it. Directors hate it.
Or sexualized.
Yeah.
Definitely seen some reviews that were like, well, we don't even need to see it now. I feel like we really watched the whole movie.
What's funny too is all that stuff is done in after the filming has been completed. And some of the funniest ones you've ever seen, like Pulp Fiction. Go look at the Pulp Fiction movie poster. Samuel Jackson's hair is super short, but in the movie it's really big. And it was because he had shot another film and then came back to do the photography work. And, you know, so I think we even have it up in the lobby. Go look at his hair. And that just shows you that it is advertising, and worrying about that comes later. And it's not on the day of. So
I was watching a video and they were talking about like early like 1930s movies, and they're just trying to make so many movies and they're just trying to profit off of it. And so they didn't really do as well as they could have been. So they just made a poster and then just gave it to an audience. It's like, which one do you think looks better? And they just built the story off of that title. And they just made millions just doing that. So clickbait is like one of the first ways of doing clickbait.
yeah, have you heard the term B movie?
Yeah.
It started in the golden age. The studios, almost all the studios, some of the small ones didn't, but most of them, they had contracts with theaters. Some of them before they broke up the monopoly. They even owned their own theaters, but they would produce a new film every week. So there wasn't television. This was pre-television, and they would go and watch the new film, which was often a B movie, not the famous actors, small budget films, and it would be a double feature with the big one. So they would spend a lot of money on and have the big stars on a film that they think would be great, the Oscar nominee type films. And then every week they would churn out a B movie. And so you'd go watch this crappy, low production value film with that great film. So they would churn out, 55 films a year. So they would have a new film every single week.
And that was probably just trying to subsidize for the bigger movies.
Yeah, well, but it was expected.
Yeah.
You'd go to watch a double feature and you'd watch that new film. And then the great one that would run, the Gone with the Wind ran for like 6 years. And before that, it happened one night, which was considered to be a B movie, but it was so successful, it kept running. So you'd watch it happen one night and the week's film. And if your grandparents talked about their movie going experience, they would see double features.
Yeah.
And they used to go, back in that era, 90 million Americans went to the movies every single week. My dad talked about how he'd spend all day Sunday at the movie theater. It was just how it was done and what Americans did.
You wanted to have it for full televisions for their own, so they-
Well, they did. There wasn't television until the late 40s, and Americans didn't start getting them in their homes until the 50s. So the 30s and 40s, the golden age of cinema. You listen to the radio as your regular entertainment, and then you'd go to the movies once a week or weekends or whatever, and that was how things were done. So we're off topic. I'm sorry. We've now done camera. Then there are things too that we didn't talk about, like data wrangling, videographer. We talked about photography and stills. The videographer, we do that. We almost messed up this last week. What do you think? What are we calling it? Yeah, the BTS. So I was so preoccupied last week that I totally forgot about it. And thank God Nick said, shouldn't we be shooting behind the scenes? And so then he did that for mine, or Tim didn't get any footage of his. But yes, there's somebody whose job it is to film the behind the scenes for promotional reasons. For our purposes, it's so that those who can't be here in the classroom can still see what we're doing. But they have videographers on set in most films, just like they have photographers, for still photographers. They have data wrangling. What do you think that is?
Would imagine it'd probably be like retention rate in the movie, maybe, and then.
No, this is camera department.
Oh, okay.
No, so for generations, it was the person or people who took the film cartridges out of the camera and would take them to be developed. And that is now dying very quickly. Not a lot of films are being shot on film, but I can't tell you how many hundreds of stories I know where something happened. In Jaws, for example, at one point the ship, the Orca, went down and the camera went down with it. So what happens to that footage? Actually, there's a saline solution that they use to preserve the film. So salt water is a lot like it, and they got to save a lot of that footage after all. But oftentimes in Singing in the Rain, the famous Make 'em Laugh scene, if any of you seen that scene, all of the film for that scene was destroyed, and they had to come back and shoot it all over again. So there's someone whose job it is to take that footage off the camera, protect it, and then take it to be developed. Also, then once it's developed, to bring that developed footage, it used to be called the dailies, so that the directors and producers could be seen so they could watch what was shot that day. Now it is all on cards, it's digital. Now we've had some tragedies here too. You remember the one I'm talking about?
The reformatter.
Yeah. So I had a lesson on the red. At the beginning of the day, you want to make sure that you start with a fresh card. So here's how you go to the menu, and then you go to device, and then reformat disk, and then it's now clean. Now you have a full terabyte of stuff to record. So one guy just turned on the camera and reformatted the drive. Well, I hadn't had a chance to copy the footage yet from the day before. and my drive's large enough, or my card is large enough so that I knew I could get a second day of shooting on. But everything we shot the day before was gone. And the director of that, she started crying. I think I cried before I started hitting my head on the wall. I mean, it was a whole day just gone. Imagine if one of you directed something and spent all that time prepping and was shooting and all of that and just suddenly gone. So we got to be really careful that you always ask, and it's me because I'm the one who copies the footage, but is it okay to format the card? And wait until I say yes. Sometimes I'll even play a joke and say, oh, after you format, I'll say, oh my God, no, not that one. But anyways, you ask because we've had it happen twice. One was a full day and one was a scene where someone just came in and formatted the card. So
That happened with Toy Story 2. And so it was all saved because the lady went on maternity leave, and then she had the whole movie already saved. It was like 90% done. It was just reformatted. Somebody reformatted the whole thing. They only had one copy of it, and the lady had another one.
yeah, and so what you just said is really smart. I copy the footage, and then immediately, if it's my film, I copy it again. So I always have everything on 2 drives. If it's someone else's film, I don't do that. I have my copy. I wait for them to give me a drive, and then I copy it for them.
Yeah, especially if you have your drive gets corrupted and
Yeah.
it dies and
And
you
it-
lost everything.
Yeah, it happens. So I like to keep 2 copies. I'll only keep 1. But if you're directing, the smartest thing to do is come with a drive.
Yeah.
So that I will immediately have it on 2 drives.
Have something with the cloud too.
Yeah,
So had a
I don't-
copy.
I don't do that, but some people do. So, but for me, it's often when we shoot something, like when we were shooting something for Death Pact, every day of shooting would be a terabyte. Sometimes, I mean, it was a huge amount, and that's difficult on the cloud. The cloud struggles with red footage because the file sizes are so large.
Yeah.
6K really takes up the data.
Yeah. So, okay, the lighting department, and grip department. Start with the gaffer. Hey, Nick, come up, bring your chair and come on in here and join us. Sit right in the middle. So, Nick was with us last semester and he kind of decided that, he wanted to focus on lighting. And so, tell us about your experiences and.
So my experience is, I learned a lot, like you can do single lighting, kind of like right now we have just one source of light. You can do 3-point lighting, where you have your key light on what you're focusing on, your fill light and your backlighting. You got the gels to change different colors, diffusers and scrims if you need to change the intensity.
Yeah,
See a lot of shadows, a lot of stuff to worry about, shadows, reflections.
talk more about the job, like what's the responsibility of a gaffer and a best boy or key grip or whatever.
So you're gonna get there, you're gonna see what the shot's gonna be, you're gonna set up the lighting, put the C stands up, put the lights up, get the stingers out to run the power sources, kind of help out with the angles. Like the biggest thing I noticed, especially when doing the brush with death shots, is so much stuff can reflect the light that you're not thinking about in there that the camera could pick up on. So you want to make sure all that's set up.
Yeah, so the DP has a lighting scheme in mind because the DP has already talked to the gaffer, and it's the gaffer's job to make that happen. And so I know that you a few times, well, with Tim's film last week, we wanted the very hard light and shadows. So we shot through the window with the blinds. You've done that type of thing. Last year with David's film, do you remember it was a film that was shot, it was supposed to take place at night, but we couldn't shoot all night long. So we started shooting during the day, but we wanted moonlight coming through the windows. So we built a big black box with dark curtains, and then had a light that we could gel and control so that there'd be moonlight coming through the blinds. David was the director. It was his concept. He told me, because I was the gaffer and you were my key grip, and together you and I built the box, set up the lights. I was often, there was some lightning too, if you remember. So I was outside flashing the lights for the lightning, but you were inside making sure that we were getting the fill that he wanted. Didn't you have like the small lights, and you had red gels on them? And so again, it takes multiple people, but in that particular shoot, that was the first shoot of the semester, David told me what he wanted. And then, so I was the gaffer, and then Nick and I worked together to create the lighting.
And it's not always stationary either, because I remember there was one point he really wanted the red light to glow on her face. So like, as the actor was moving and the camera was moving, I was literally moving the light to keep it on their face. So
Yeah. And it's a lot of it, sometimes it's problem solving. One was he wanted moonlight coming, and yet we had to shoot during the day. So you spent a lot of time blacking out all the windows on one side of the house, because we didn't want sunlight coming through, and then building the box, and then creating, and then we want more intensity. So you turn up the light. All of the lights, and most of the lights we use are dimmable. So it's what percentage is the light, and the angle of the light, and the color of the light, and all those things. The gaffer works with the DP, and then the key grip works with the gaffer to create the lighting schemes.
and that's definitely one of those times it's good if people are going to take a lunch break, like you mentioned earlier, or a pause to do that work. Because I feel like we had 2 hours maybe in setting up the black box and blacking out the windows. I think I used like a whole roll of gaffer's tape.
Yeah.
So that took a while, because every tiny little crack, even some areas that were one layer tape, but when the sun was beaming on it, it looked bright inside the room. So we had to go out and apply more,
Yeah.
and that took time.
Yeah, and the other thing too, we have in our list gaffer, key grip, but there can also, on a big Hollywood set, there might be 40 grips. The C-stands and the sandbags and the arming over and all of that stuff. If you have a big set, you don't just do it with one light, you have multiple lights. When you shoot at night, watch a movie that's shot at night and look at how far you can see in the distance. And that's layers of lighting, not done by one light, it's multiple lights. So if there are 40 lights needed for a big wide night shoot, there's got to be a lot of people involved in setting those up. And oh, from this angle I can see that light, now we're going to have to move that, or this one's a little too intense, we'll turn that one down. Or there's a lot of kind of changes on the fly, and it is the gaffer and the gaffer's crew who does that work.
Definitely a little bit of problem solving you gotta think of too. I remember that one time, I think we ran out of outlets at your house because we were trying to run so many lights. The outside shot, we had to run an extension cord all the way outside in.
Yeah.
So
Run a what?
I'm sorry, a stinger. That was my bad, a stinger. So
Yeah, and there are things, there's language too. If you see gappers and key grips and you know who they are on set, don't say anything. What is kind of distinctive about them? What do you see a lot? Just like, you know, that the DP and first ACs always have a quarter in their pocket. By the way, you did it. Why do you have to have a quarter in your pocket?
Because you need to unscrew the mount.
Yeah, the tripod plate mounting to the camera, a quarter is perfect for screwing it in. So
I got one now.
yeah, you just always have a quarter in your pocket. I actually have quarters in my camera bag. So if you forget, you can grab one. What does a gaffer or key grip have that distinguish them? Well, on their person. So yes, you got to have stingers, but that usually comes separately. But if you see them on set, what is? Yeah, and so sometimes they have like a fanny pack, but on their hip, like a hip bag that will have gaffer's tape. They often will set marks, and so they'll be the ones who put tape on the ground for the actors. So gaffer's tape is a big one, but what else? There's every time I go to a Hollywood set, you can tell the key grips. What is the device that holds gel diffusion to barn doors? Yeah, but what are they called? C47s. Yeah, C47s. And there's a long story about why they are called that. But if you call a clothespin, a C47, a clothespin on set, AJ, a former student of mine who's now owns his own production company, he said that the first time he was on set, some of his classmates said, hey, are there any clothespins that I can use? They got fired for that. So you got to know the right terminology, but they often will have a bunch of C47s clipped to the bottom of their shirt. So they have them clipped to their sleeves or their shirts, so that they're ready whenever they need one, because they have a bunch of them on their person. The other thing is you have to handle lights, and they can be incredibly hot. We'll probably have a 1K for Sophie's film in use, and in 30 seconds of being on, you can't touch it. It's way too hot, and yet you have to. So they always have gloves, usually like leather or suede gloves, so that you can manipulate the lighting when it's really hot. So those are some of the things that they you can see them. They have gloves hanging from their belt, or, they wear them or something at all times. So anything else you want to add about the lighting department?
I just say you're definitely right on. It can get hot, so keep in mind where you're filming. If it's in a small room, it can get hot quick. So if they do take pauses, that could be a time for you to open windows and doors, even if it's just 30 seconds. We had a point there in a bedroom at your house where when we were taking quick breaks, we'd open the windows just for a second to get a little air in there. So, and same with striking the lights off while saving. So
the camera, well, I'm pointing at that one, but the red camera has an optimum temperature. And we've had issues in the past, remember, Sophie, where the camera would start to get hot. We have a special camera that blows just on the fan that blows just on the camera when on really hot days. And that's the grip's job, is bring it in, point it at the camera to cool it off. So, yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Okay, the next one is the audio department, and there are several positions. I would argue that probably the most important is the mixer, the person who's, for us, is mixing with the F8. And we'll have a tutorial on how to do that, but they'll have headphones on, listening for all potential problems. So I have the fans turned off, but can you hear that humming noise? That's the type of thing, if you can, and it's always multiplied when you start to go through a microphone. You have to listen, is that on? I think it's a compressor that's on outside. If it's on and some points and then turns off, now that's a problem. If it's on and you've shot some stuff and then suddenly goes off, now you have to get ambient sound. You have to make note that when we're done, when it turns back on, we have to record in complete silence so we can pick up just that sound so that we can lay it underneath. Need to listen for things like dogs barking or planes going or cars going by. Or one of the biggest issues that we have, when the actors wear lavaliers and they're moving, it makes noise. Now, if they're walking around and it's making a noise, no big deal. But as soon as they say a line and it makes noise, now you have to let the director know that take was no good for audio. We need to do it again. And the director's assuming that everything's going to be good unless there's something they're told otherwise. So it's your responsibility. And we've had in the past Well, we've had people who, like, they're on their cell phones, yeah, okay, it's rolling, and they're focusing on something else, they're not really listening, they're not paying attention. And we don't know if we're getting good audio or not, because they're not really paying attention. But one of the worst mixers we ever had, were you there for that fight scene that we did with Alex Thompson and Chandler Shaw?
I don't think so.
So we did a poker scene in here once, and everything was dark, and we had a dolly that circled the table, and it was really edgy, and there was a fight scene, and we loved the footage. It was a great fight scene. Blood that I bought breakaway beer bottles, so someone got smashed over the head, and then we had blood. That's why I thought you were there, because it was cool blood stuff. But anyways, it was this great scene, and then found out later that the audio person was hitting record, and then not, when it'd say cut, wouldn't, and then we'd say, okay, next one again, they'd hit record again, which would stop it. So they were only recording every other take, and then they weren't listening at all, and the stuff that was just none of it was usable. So we had this amazing scene with cool shots, and we always did Foley and looping scenes to get that scene. It was a kind of something we did for a couple of years, because this was really great acting, great visuals, and yet terrible unusable sound. But that can be a big deal.
Also, they're in charge of mixing the sound, so actually turning the volume up and down on what the microphone is picking up. Is the microphone picking up the noise very loudly, so that when it's recorded, it's getting recorded loudly, or is it getting recorded quietly? So if somebody is shouting very loudly, you don't want to pick up the audio volume loudly. You want to turn the master volume down so that you're getting usable audio,
Yeah,
as opposed to if somebody's whispering really quietly. You want to be able to turn the volume that is getting caught up so that you're catching that sound.
yeah. There are a couple things I want to say about that. One is that the good sound mixers, because they ask the actors to do a sound check. They don't just assume that what they have works. They'll ask them to say the alphabet or count to 10 or whatever. But also they're ready on take 2 to change. Was it a little hot, or was it not enough signal? So that's a big deal. If you record most of it at one level, and suddenly there's a scream or a gunshot or something, and it gets too high, it peaks, and there's modulation, the sound quality can be unusable. So the F8 is capable of recording at 2 levels. So you can have one for dialogue and one that's lower, so that it doesn't distort during that scream or that loud sound. You cannot mix the audio much during a take. And I had one student in the past thought, oh, I'm supposed to adjust the audio during the take. And it changes the quality of the sound, and it's not usable. So you basically are setting it for that take, and then make adjustments for the next take. If, wow, she screamed louder than I thought she would, or that punch was, or whatever, you make adjustments for that. Or you record at 2 different levels, and now you're covered because you've got a low and a high. So those are all kind of important things. Sound is very unforgiving. As soon as you have bad sound, it can ruin a scene. No matter how wonderful everything else is, bad audio can ruin it. So it's super important. This whole time we've been talking about sound mixing, but the boom operator it's a tough job, and one that requires skill and attention. When we do audio, I'm going to show you, we're going to use shotgun mics, and they're very, very directional. And if I'm miking Sophie, it should be there. We will do what we call frame lines. So is it in? Is it in? It's in. Okay, now it's in. So I know that I can get it. I want the microphone to be as close as we can. If she has dialogue and we're doing extreme close-up with her eyes, I might have the microphone, well, not there because of the lighting. I might have it right there. Actors very quickly have to get comfortable with stuff right in front of them. Are you starting to feel more comfortable with?
Right there, that's a lot.
Yeah, but you get used to it, and but it's important because the closer the camera is, the closer the microphone needs to be because of the quality of the sound. It's supposed to sound different if the camera is across the room than it is if it's an extreme close-up. So you want to keep, and the closer it is, the better the quality of the sound. But the closer the microphone gets, the more the mix has to be turned down because it will be louder. So all those things have to be considered. But when I was saying that's very directional, I can have it close, but if the shotgun mic is there, the sound is terrible. If it's there, it's unusable because it's basically taking the sound from there. And if I go from there to there, it's so bad. And yet how easy is it? Oh my God, it's tiring. And you kind of take a little movement and now suddenly the sound is bad.
Not only that, but actually the pole and cord, I've had problems with this. If you actually want to hold it in one position, because if you're manhandling the pole, we hear all that
Yeah,
loudly,
handling
very
noise.
loudly.
Yeah, and movement. So when you move, it's got to be very, very kind of subtle while keeping the mic at the person who's speaking, and any kind of movement or handling, or you want to adjust stuff, you hear all of that. If you bump something, it's like, what bomb went off? I mean, it's just so, and it's tough. You have to, and not only that, but when you start extending the boom, I mean, it's a wider shot and you're standing 10 feet away and yet you're having to hold that for a long time. It's not an easy job, but if not done well, the whole scene can be, ruined.
It's good as boom operator to always check with the sound mixer. Hey, how did audio sound? Was it okay?
Yeah. It's difficult, but whenever possible, we like to put microphone or headphones on the boom operator, because suddenly when you can hear what you're doing, the other thing too, boom operators, until they realize, they'll set the boom, or they'll bump things with it and don't give it a second thought. But the poor mixer's like, oh geez, because it makes really loud noises or whatever. So you just have to be aware of kind of the power of the boom. Other things, art department, we've talked a little bit about that, but set direction, prop master, storyboard artist. Storyboard artist works closely with the director, creating the look of each shot. I'm the type of person, I'm a contractor and I can visualize everything. So I don't need it, but some people really like to be able to draw the image, and not only for themselves, but then to be able to show it to the art director or the DP or whatever. So a storyboard artist can be, Scorsese has a storyboard artist for every shot that he wants. He has his storyboards that are like on 8 by or 7 by, they're not 3 by 5 cards, they're a little larger. And he puts a hole in the upper left corner and has them on a ring. And he keeps them with him at all times. He pulls them out and he refers to them. Can also show people. So a lot of the greats use storyboards, but I'm not an artist. I would do stick figures, which doesn't help anybody. So I'm sure, do you storyboard?
I storyboard
Because,
everything.
because she's a great artist, so it's not fair. But anyways, any questions about, I don't know how much we want to get into all these, prop masters and set design and, even things like wardrobe, there's a person who's in charge of the team who creates wardrobe. And if it's a scene with one actor, not that hard. Our friend Grady, was just in Babylon. Have any of you seen Babylon? He acted in a scene with Brad Pitt and was in a scene with Meryl Streep. But in Babylon, there were thousands of actors in costume. He spent 10 days on set as two different characters, and one he was in like gladiator wardrobe. So in some films, the wardrobe is extremely important and very period pieces are very difficult. We tend to keep it simple here, but just know that those are very important elements. Just like in theater, they are in film as well. When it comes to makeup and some of those things, I think we should talk about them only because we have a genius sitting here in front of us. Sophie can do stuff with makeup and movie blood that you can't even imagine. And if you want proof, I can show you all kinds of cool stuff that she's not only done to herself but done to others. And it's important, how our actors look. I did a scene from Do Not Disturb where a character's dying, he's been shot, and you can, and I wanted him to look progressively worse throughout the scene, and he looks like he's on the verge of death. And he wasn't. He just, it was makeup and great acting on his part, but it was what Sophie did to him that made him look like he was bleeding out, and he had to look more and more pale and more just, and he really looks it. And you can see that film when we play it coming up, but that's makeup. The other thing that I can't help brag, the same movie, my motivation was the scene in Saving Private Ryan when the medic is shot and he's bleeding out. That was my motivation. And I said to Sophie, I want a wound on his abdomen, a gunshot wound, and I want to see blood. And when he wipes it away, I want blood to keep coming out. She said, no problem. I swear it looks so realistic. She pumping blood through the hole, and it is, and that gives it authenticity. It's not just like like Casablanca when someone gets shot and there's no blood at all or nothing. There's you believe this guy's dying because of what Sophie did on screen. So hopefully we will have someone like Sophie, or you will have someone like Sophie there when you're doing your scenes to make your actors look more attractive, or to create whatever look. She made you look robotic last week. What else has Sophie done to? Didn't there was something with the Western?
And a lot of dirt on my face.
Oh yeah, okay.
And drone stuff, the outfit to make it look warm.
Yeah, so we capture, I mean, when you shoot in 6K, you capture all the little stuff, and you have to take steps to make sure things look real. So it's an important, I'm rambling and I don't even, I call Sophie when I need things done. So anything that you wanted to say about?
I feel like you really covered it. I mean, I have little tips and tricks that I've learned, but I would request that you ask me personally if you want to do anything or you need advice or whatever.
I might put together a makeup, a list not a list,
For real?
a reel of Sophie's makeup for some of the projects.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I look for that, because I might do that this weekend. But anyways, so you can see, what can be done. Special effects, we'll talk about that more, about specific things that we want to do, but having someone who's thinking about special effects or green screening or practical effects, which I like better, instead of doing something in post, break a beer bottle over someone's head, or and we'll talk about them, but whenever you can do them practically, I think it's smart. So yeah, but we're starting to, there's so many stunt coordinators. Renan, who you haven't met yet, has done a lot of stunt coordinating for us and choreography. He actually got a Gabby, I think a couple years ago, for some of the stunt coordinating. But fight scenes, did any of you watch the 72-hour film competition? One of the films this year had a fight scene, and there were a couple of stunts that were amazing. Well, they all are black belts in judo and kung fu and karate. So, and they planned them out, but yeah, they were really, really good. Having people who know what they're doing. We'll talk a little bit maybe about weapons and the problems that come with that later, but having someone who deals with that type of thing so that no one gets hurt, and there's no chance of having problems with onlookers. I've told you some of the stories, right? Yeah, so I'll tell you more if you want to hear them. But location scout, location manager. In fact, I'll tell you one more story. AJ, who I mentioned earlier, and I were shooting a feature film called It'll Happen, and we were doing a scene. It was actually at the stoplight here on the edge of campus, and in the scene, someone comes to a stop, goes a little too far and puts it in reverse and goes in reverse to back up behind the line, forgets to take it out of reverse, and then someone comes in behind them. Then when the light turned green, they hit the gas and they rammed into the car behind them. So that was the scene. And then he gets out and walks up, and then they have this conversation at the window. It's a rom-com, and so it's their meet cute. But it's their there was this scene at a intersection, but it was kind of on campus, and I'd gotten permission from campus security, so I thought we were safe. But we were filming with we had a 30-foot jib. So the camera's on this giant crane up in the air so that we could, first of all, see the stoplight, but then swing around and see the cars. And someone drove by and thought, I guess, that we were terrorists or something. So they called the police, and we were like putting equipment away, and we were, breaking things down. The jib was down, and we were taking things back to the car. And all of a sudden, 2 highway patrol, 2 sheriff, and 2 Gilroy PD showed up. They got out and drew their weapons. And the funniest thing, I still think it's so funny. AJ had a long beard, and so he was the criminal, and I was clean shaven, and they ran past me to get AJ. AJ's like 5'5" and sweet guy. You'll if you ever meet him, you'll love him. He's such a great guy, but he was the dangerous one, and they drew weapons and put him in handcuffs until they figured out what was happening. And but it was all because someone thought we were doing that. I don't know what they thought we were doing, because there were no weapons. It was but you got to be careful, because when you're in public, people see something and sometimes will think the worst. So
I was shooting in a restaurant one time. It was like a Denny's. We had permission from the
Manager.
manager. We even had permission to use a weapon because there's a weapon that gets drawn in the scene. But we were shooting while it was actually business hours. And so the director of that shoot, which was Sam, she said, well, let's refer to the gun as grape, because we don't want people hearing the word gun. Oh, take the gun out. Oh,
Yeah.
So it's another little story.
Squeeze the grape. Yeah, I'll tell you one more, and then we can stop. But again, one of the earliest films I shot was a family film where our family would vacation. We still would vacation every summer up at Donner Lake. And we were going to do one where my niece and 2 nephews make a wish and they turn into grown-ups. And it was grown-ups before the original Adam Sandler film, by the way. And then they're suddenly adults. Well, there's a chase scene where my cousin's husband, who is a police officer, he had his uniform and everything. He chases the kids kind of down the street and like to the lake. And when we started shooting, there was nobody there. By the time we were done, about 10 minutes later, there were 3,000 people, is what was guessed. The real police came because there's this crowd. There's a chasing. You see a police officer chasing kids and something's going on. But there was this, it was in an intersection where a lot of people came, the people stopped, and then now people can't even get by because of the traffic jam, and then people getting out, and it got crazy in 10 or 15 minutes. And then I thought we were going to get in trouble, except that my cousin's husband was an actual police officer and he talked us out of it. But it's crazy how people see something they want to watch. You have a camera out, and especially if you look kind of official where there's more than just the camera operator, people will stop and look. So, and sometimes not a problem, but if they can get in the shot, that can be a problem. Or if they, it causes some kind of commotion, that can be an issue. But makes for good stories. Any questions before we stop the Zoom? Okay, if you were watching, thanks you for listening, and we're signing off. Bye.